All right, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Retracing History. Now, this is a I just said retracing history. Wow, that's a different series we do here on the channel. This is uncut history because it's live and uncut, and you have crazy stuff happen like that. Now, this is not our normal date. Normally, we do them on Thursdays, but we're doing it on Tuesday today because we have a special guest on. We have the president of the Patriot Park Foundation on, Randy Musser. So I'm about to bring him in right about now. There he is. You're on.
Hey, thank you. Good to be here.
Welcome to the show. I have been wanting to get you on for, well, probably about 2 years now. I've been wanting to get somebody from Patriot Park on ever since the first time I went back and saw that. So for those that'll be tuning in and for the more people that'll be watching on the replay, just give a very brief overview. What exactly is Patriot Park?
Well, Patriot Park is a park memorial dedicated to our global war and terror veterans. We like to say we want to remember all those who lost their lives in the global war and terrorism. We want to honor all those that served, and through the park and the displays and so forth, we want to inspire visitors to be worthy of the sacrifices made by so many on our behalf.
Now, the war on terror has been one of the longest conflicts that the United States has been involved with, approximately 20 years worth of history right there from 2001, September 11, 2001, right up until 2021. So it's there's a lot to cover there. So I'm sure it's an equally long and interesting road to get to the creation of Patriot Park. So where really did this idea start, the genesis of this memorial now being in Stoystown, Pennsylvania?
Gosh, it's been probably 7 or 8 years ago. We acquired some property there along Route 30, and in my career, I've developed properties commercially, residentially, and I'm a civil engineer and have worked in that field for many years, and was able to acquire some properties there along Route 30, and was looking at different development ideas. And we were able to use some of the property we acquired there. One parcel's been spun off and is now a microbrewery just to the west of Patriot Park, and another.
The Forbes Trail Brewing Company.
Yep, that's right. And a house that we had acquired, we split that off and sold it. But this piece of property is solely inside the boundary of the Flight 93 National Memorial. And the more I thought about it, the more I said, you know what, we got to do something non-commercial there. And so I was actually, walking through Walmart one day and picked up a book about our global war terror veterans. And I read through that book, and having had exposure to men and women that served in the war on terrorism, because my son-in-law is a veteran. I said, hey, look, we got to tell their stories here at Flight 93. We got to tell the stories of the men and women who served in our military after 9/11. The first battle in the global war on terrorism started in the skies right above Patriot Park, and that's where the 40 passengers and crew members on board Flight 93 decided to fight back, not let the terrorists do what they wanted to do. And so that sort of was the infancy of the idea. And so I talked to folks and said, hey, look, what do you think about this? Different people, military people, non-military people, reached out first of all to the families of the Flight 93 passengers and crew members, to their organization, and to the National Park Service folks, and everybody seemed to think it was a fine idea, good spot for something like that. So we put together a board of directors and started work on it. So all that paid off in 2021 at the right before the first or the 20th anniversary of 9/11. We opened the park, And so since then, we're just really just past our 2 year point, and we've made a lot of improvements, and I think we have a good start on a terrific park and memorial that's going to serve for generations to come, and let people know that after 9/11, a lot of folks in the United States sacrificed an awful lot to keep us safe and free.
Indeed. When I first saw the memorial, it must have been a week or two after it opened, the soft opening, because it was September 10th, 2021. There is a very lengthy episode of Retracing History, one of the first episodes I did, and I wanted to go see the Flight 93 memorial, but I also wanted to show that there's other memorials, other ways that Somerset County commemorates this event. So
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I wanted to hit the Flight 93 Chapel. I knew there was a small memorial at the Shanksville Volunteer Fire Department.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was driving through, I didn't know anything about Patriot Park. The only reason I knew about it, I had gone on a Civil War reenacting trip 2 weeks earlier, and I saw the sign. It was just getting set
Mm-hmm.
up then. And I'm like,
Yep.
well, I'll stop and see it because I'm leaving the memorial and I have to go down the road to turn the left to go down to Shanksville anyways. Let me stop
Mm-hmm.
in. At this time, there was not much to show you outside what was behind the trees. It was a small sign. You pulled in there. And what I saw when I went back and why I got so into it is this very vivid image when you walk back there, and that is the Field
Mm-hmm.
of Honor, all the flags out there. So my
Mm-hmm.
question is, where did this idea come about of the Field of Honor?
Well, I think just through our board and discussing ways that we could honor all those who lost their lives, remember all those that lost their lives in the war on terrorism, and for a number of years we had kicked around this idea of a flag for each life lost in the war, and you can imagine some of the logistic problems. Well, how do you put in 7,000 flags? How do you keep the grass cut in and around 7,000 flags? So we worked through a lot of that, thanks to a great board and some great volunteers. We come up with a game plan, and throughout the month of August of 2021, we built the first flag display, and I call it the Field of Heroes flag display. Um, and because it was August of the year, I mean, the ground was hard and dry and the weather was hot. And we worked with volunteers for 3 days putting in the flags. And I mean, sweat running down your brow. The ground was so hard that you had to actually use a drill. And we had
Oh
about,
God.
we had a whole bunch of guys with drills in and 1/4 inch bits on, masonry bits, and drilled pilot holes into the ground so that we could actually insert the flags. So we worked in teams of two, one person putting the drill hole in and another person putting the flag in. And of course, all that is put together, in a way that creates the rows and the diagonals that you see when you visit the park. We place the flags on 2-foot centers, both along the row and between the rows. And then every other row is offset 1 foot. So, for example, the first row you put in flags at 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And then the second row, which is offset by 2 foot back, you put the flags in at 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. And so that creates that nice diagonal, but it also gives you that nice field look when you stand in front, looking, out across toward the big flags. You just have this sea of flags, and you don't really see the rows, vertically, I call them. They're in there, but because of the offsets, you don't really pick them out.
Yeah, no, it is a visual. It's a visual feast. Maybe not the best term to use, but when you see
Mm-hmm.
it, when you go back there, it kind of smacks you. It's overwhelming. You realize the
Mm-hmm.
loss of life that went into the struggle for 20 years. And
Mm-hmm.
again, you don't really see it from the road which may be a good thing considering how heavy traffic can be through there. But you go back, you're not expecting it. Kind of there's a buildup. The path is going through the trees, and then it just opens up. And like I said again,
Yeah.
there is an emotional rush that goes over you when you first see it.
Right.
Now,
Right. I
when
I often tell people it's one thing to say we've lost 7,000 men and women in the global war on terrorism, but it's another thing to see that number. Puts it in a whole different perspective.
visuals absolutely are visuals. How I want to word this. Because I do a lot of military history, I bounce between French and Indian War and American Civil War. Those are two of my fields of study. And we'll talk about these battles, especially I'm working on a video right now about Antietam. And you say these numbers of losses, but then you can see the school children's eyes kind of glaze over, and even adults as well go, okay, numbers, blah, blah. But no, when you give a physical example, this is the loss, this is how impactful it was, it definitely changes people's interest, people's tension. It gets them to take things, makes them take a lot more hold over what they're being shown.
Sure. The other day I was out at the park doing some work, and I noticed a lady with two children come in, and they stopped at the first board there. And so I walked over, and when I did, I saw she was crying. And so I sort of, waited a little bit, gave her a chance to compose. And I found out that here she was from Ohio, and she had been at Patriot Park before, but she came back because she said, in her words, she wanted to show her grandchildren that freedom isn't free. And I think, I hope that people who visit Patriot Park, if nothing else, take away that thought, that idea that freedom isn't free.
You mentioned about those signs. So just to orient those that have not been to the park yet, and as I mentioned, you kind of walk back from the parking lot, you go through a very short trail through the woods, and then you come out here to the Field of Heroes. Now, along the pathway that's in front of the Field of Heroes, there are a variety of these signs. I actually got a photo of one here.
Sure.
So I have a question, because I've noticed the last time I went there, a lot of the signs, several of them are credited to schools. Do the schools physically build the signs, or are they doing the research for the signs?
Yeah, the schools have, we asked a number of the schools in Somerset County if they'd be interested, and some have taken us up on it. And we plan to do that again this winter because we'd like to redo our signs. And so, even any school district that's watching this show, and a journalism club or English department who would like to take on the job of researching and designing storyboards. And so they're not long, 150 words. And we would provide some subject matter for them to research and come up with the storyboards. Then once they produce the text and the pictures and so forth, then we get the signs produced. So there's none of that graphic work that they need to do. It's basically the writing and the research and development of the story.
Now, how do they decide the stories? Because I think one or two of them, they're actually soldiers that were from the Somerset County area, but a lot of them, they're not from the area. They're just soldiers who served. So how does that get decided what stories are going to be told in these signs?
Well, we provided them with the subject. So we said we'd like to do a storyboard on women in the military. And so they came up with a board to that, and we could do another one. Another storyboard on women in the military, and pick a different subject, a different person. We wanted to do a story on Medal of Honor winner. We wanted to do a story on the use of canines in the military in the global war on terrorism. So, those are all subjects that we could revisit and come up with a brand new board, because there's lots of material out there if you get into the research.
Now, you guys I've noticed the last visit. So my last visit would have been July 2023 when I met you the first time in
Yeah.
person. And
Mhm.
when I pulled in, I noticed there was some motive power now on the property. And I think this is a
Mhm.
little bit of a teaser of things to come at the park. So tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about the Humvee that's ended up here.
Oh yeah, we were thrilled this early summer to be able to acquire a camo colored, desert colored Humvee, and this is a military surplus, but it's a Humvee like what would have been used in Iraq and Afghanistan, and so we were fortunate. I reached out to a company that's actually was based down in Florida, and they do online auction. And I found out in doing some research that they also have an online auction facility for just government equipment. And so and their facility down in Florida, which is huge, sells construction equipment like bulldozers and excavators and all kind of stuff like that. But they have a special division that just deals with the types of military equipment we're seeing here that have been demilitarized and then put out for sale. And so I was able to get in touch with a client of mine who's in the mining industry, and I thought maybe he might know some folks at that auction house. And sure enough, he did. And when he got in touch with them and they heard what we were looking for, they agreed to donate this particular unit. And so we were just thrilled. It was located down at one of their storage yards in Chambersburg, which is located next to an Army depot. And my client, Jason Swanovec from here in Somerset, went down with their equipment then and picked it up and brought it up to the Somerset County Votech. And the students there at the Votech there right at the last couple of weeks of May went over it, got it cleaned up, a couple doors that were loose put back together. And so we got it on display. Now it doesn't run, but we're going to take it back up to the Votech school here in November. And the seniors that are there are looking forward to working on that as a senior project in order to see if they can't get it running and make it usable to us. And then next summer we'll bring it back out and maybe put it on display there or someplace else here at the park.
So and I do encourage anybody, if you're passing through on US 30, see the park now. But this is not the final form that, at least the plan is not, this is not the final form for the park. I'm going to bounce over here to the website, Patriot Park Foundation, and the link is in the description below of the live stream. So if you're, whoever's watching, be sure to go to the website, discover more. We're actually to go over to park design. And if you want to talk a little bit about what the end goal is for Patriot Park.
All right. Well, that's what you're looking at there is the Gold Star Memorial Plaza, and that was a concept that we came up with, early on, and that's about that along with an education center and a visitor center is about a $6 to $7 million project. And so, we worked on trying to get all that off the ground, and then we said, you know what, we need something to start with that's a little more within our reach. And that spawned the Field of Heroes flag display and what we built so far. But we are focused on our next step. We believe is to get our education center and visitor center built, and then go to work on the Gold Star Memorial Plaza or something similar to that. This is a conceptual plan. We're really looking for and working on getting global war and terror veterans, Gold Star family members together in this project and work through a full-blown design phase that might incorporate features of the Gold Star Memorial Plaza along with the Field of Heroes flag display, because it has proven to be so moving and such a terrific feature that most people say, boy, we'd hate to see that go away. So we're thinking and working on ways that we might incorporate that into a refinement of the design you have on the screen.
Yeah, I have to say that as well. In some capacity, the Field of Heroes has to remain in some or
Mhm.
a segment of it, of the sage of it, because it is just so impactful. It definitely is what puts this park up above most other memorials that have been coming out in recent years. And that's not me trying to discredit or anything. There's something
Right.
personal that somebody's going out there. There's people, volunteers going out there, staking those flags in, maintaining
Right.
it. And I'm not joking, folks. I have seen Randy here out there cutting the grass, making sure all the grass is kept
Mhm.
proper so it doesn't overgrow, take over the flag. So there's a lot of man hours going into maintaining the Field of Heroes, maintain the park as is.
Yeah,
So
we're
there's
blessed with
something
a
about that.
we're blessed with a good group of volunteers, and that's part of our board's thought process is that this is a people's park. This is something that's Somerset County's version of a memorial to our global war and terror veterans. And, we want to keep it, no matter where we go in the future, we want to work to keep that personal um, touch to it, that personal feel.
Now you mentioned about there being an education center one day. I think it was today. I just saw on your Facebook page. Wonder if I can go to. I'm gonna have to connect. Well, maybe I'll be able to go. I don't usually use Microsoft Edge as my main browser, but I use it for
Mhm.
the streams. It comes out better. But I do just. I just yeah. It was just a couple days ago. I noticed you guys posting that you did. Seems to have you guys had a field trip there at Patriot Park.
Oh yeah,
It's not
yeah.
streaming. My apologies. Hold on one moment.
The
That
fifth the fifth
you're
grade
wondering what I'm
student.
looking at.
Yeah, we've
Go
had a
ahead. Go ahead.
number of schools visit. The fifth grade students from Shanksville were at a visit to the Flight 93 National Memorial. And so then after they completed that visit, they came over to Patriot Park. And they've been doing that. This is their, I believe, second. They did that last year and they did again
Oh,
this
good.
year. We've had students from Conemaugh Township. They came up and visited. They were, and it was amazing. They were so moved by what they saw at the park that once they got back to the school, the teacher said they took a class vote and made a donation to the park, which was just amazing. And but we would encourage school districts to come, and they're teaching kids now that are in elementary school weren't born on 9/11, so it's a little bit of a history lesson. And the global war on terrorism, started before they were born, but just finished up here recently, according to the Department of Defense. And so it's sort of a history, but current affairs type combination, if you will. We actually have on our board a gentleman who served in the war on terrorism in the early days in the Air Force, and then his son enlisted in the Marines and served in the war on terrorism um, in 2017, 16, 17, 18. So, it's not very often that two generations serve in the same war, father, son, at different times.
No, it shows you how long it went on. It's one of them. It's not a we get so because again bring into my periphery when I talk about the American Civil War. That's only 4.5 years, and there's so much jam packed in those 4.5 years. So many personal
Mm-hmm.
stories. But here we're going to have the challenge as historians, educators, trying to explain a war with so many personal stories over 20 years, 2 decades worth. Like this is
Yeah.
it's I mean the only thing you could compare it to is probably the Vietnam War and that length of
Mm-hmm.
time in recent memory. And even then, we're just now as historians, as educators, starting to come to grips. How do we educate about the Vietnam War? I've just
Mm-hmm.
started to see schools put it into the textbooks. So
Mm-hmm.
doing the war on terror is it's a whole other ball game. And I
Yeah.
do wonder, do you have any tips or suggestions you've thus far picked up uh, dealing with just people coming through? Any tips on how you educate a recent event like this? Anything you've picked up? What is the best way to do it?
We look at it not so much as history, but still almost as a current event. And we talk and focus primarily on the people, not so much not really the history of it so much, but the people. That's been our first phase, is focusing in on the people. Now we are looking at, for next year, a feature that we'd like to add. We've already got the trail opened up, and it's accessible for hiking. If you get up sometime, you can take a hike on it. But it'll be probably about a 200-300 yard trail, and we call it the Timeline Trail. And as we look to put on that historical events in the war on terrorism. So, the first part of the trail, as you just enter the trail, will be a small board with the Declaration of the Global War on Terrorism by President Bush, what that day was, and we're hoping to get little QR codes that you can look at with your smartphone device and get hopefully a audio of President Bush, making that declaration, and maybe a recent statement from him about that particular time. And for each of the various historical events on our timeline trail, we hope to have a personal account, someone who was there and was part of the event, tell their story. Just a 30-second clip, if you will, but just to give it that here. Okay, here's the history, but here's somebody, a current person, telling their version of it, their memories of it. And it's not something you find in a history book, but it's history.
Absolutely. And a lot of sites have been starting to get on the QR code craze, as I call it. And I mean that in an affectionate
Mm-hmm.
way. Where I work, we've started an audio tour for the outdoor property where all visitors can scan the QR code at the desk, and then has a full hour-length tour. Another museum in the area, the Compass Inn Museum, I know they started this during the pandemic. You go into all the rooms and you scan the QR code, and it gives about a minute to 2 minute talk in each room with sound effects that you would have heard in the period of that time. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of places are doing this. In fact, there's a war memorial in Mount Pleasant, Pennsylvania. They got a big war memorial, and I'm not even talking about the iconic doughboy around the roundabout, but they have a huge marquee that is actually a touch screen that you can interact with and search names directly.
Mm-hmm.
Although
Mm-hmm.
it does need some repair work. I was messing with it one day, and it took a lot, but still the thought of it is incredible. So a lot of places are doing this today, using smart devices, incorporating them into the experience.
Yep, yep. We'd like to do some of that ourselves. We have the information available on all of the 7,054 men and women. We have their through the Defense Casualty Analysis System. We have an Excel spreadsheet, and to that spreadsheet, we have added an extra cell. And if you click on that cell, it'll open up what's out there on the internet about each person. So you'll see a picture, you'll see an obituary, you'll see a story that may have appeared in the newspaper. So rather than just a name in a book, it'll become a face, it'll become a story for you. So I'm not sure when we'll be able to get that on display because of the weather considerations and electronic devices and computers, but that's something we have available right now, and we're just trying to figure out how to make it usable.
And that segue us into the last thing I wanted to ask. How can people help? How can people support Patriot Park? Even if they're not able to go directly, how can anybody help this out?
Well, spread the word, number one. Let people know we're out here. We'd love to get additional visitors, and that word of mouth is really the best way to get that going. Number two, we're always looking for volunteers. So you can go onto our website and you can email me directly at Patriot Park Foundation at gmail.com, and just express your interest in the park. I think the newsletter is posted on the website. Keep tabs of what we're doing. And then the other, obviously, we'd like to get Gold Star family members involved from from all over Western Pennsylvania and really the country, and tell the stories of their loved ones. Storyboards, we have a couple storyboards on two Somerset County boys, but we'd like to expand that here in the coming years and be able to tell the stories from for all those that have given their lives in the war on terrorism, but especially those that Westmoreland County, Fayette County, Bedford County, our adjoining counties, start to tell those stories, and then finally, and the most obvious one is make donations. We're blessed right now. We had a great fundraising dinner August the 10th with Rocky Blair as our
I was
guest
going to ask
speaker.
about that.
It was a great, just an evening to remember, just a great evening. But we were able to announce at that fundraising dinner that all donations that we receive between now and the end of the year will be matched dollar for dollar by a donor who's just made this amazing gift up to $25,000. So we do have a donor form on our website. You could go and fill that out, send it in. So when you send it to us here at Patriot Park Foundation, you can add your email address. We'll put you on the newsletter list and acknowledge your donation.
So I also, before we do wrap up, I do have to ask, because when I came last time, you had another traveling memorial on display, and it's not the only time you've had a traveling memorial. So it seems one of the most important things that memorials, historical locations, and just any community for that matter, history or not, you have to collaborate with other entities in your same field. So tell me a little bit about the success stories you've had thus far collaborating with, I think, what was it, Tunnel to Towers, and then you had the UAV Dog Tag Memorial? Just briefly touch on that.
Yes, we had for the last 2 years, the Veterans and Athletes United traveling dog tag memorial flag here at the site, and that was really well received. There's dog tags, 7,054 dog tags on that particular flag, each bearing the name of one of the men and women of the military who died in the war on terrorism. So that's been there this year in July for most of July, and then last year for about 2 weeks. So not sure we'll have it back next year, but when we opened in 2021, we had Patriot Productions out of Nebraska, and they have a traveling memorial that has pictures of over 5,000 of the men and women who lost their lives in the war on terrorism. Really very, very moving display when you set that up. The pictures put you in mind of what you see in a lot of our small towns where they have the banners, on the light posts. Well, they have, banners with the pictures and the names of over 5,000 of the men and women who died in the war on terrorism. So when you walk through that display and you see the names and you see the pictures, that really brings it home.
I had a comment from the place I was working. A visitor was bringing up about those banners in small town, and they honestly said, I thought that was just a Pennsylvania thing. They didn't realize till they traveled to other boroughs that I'm like, no, I'm pretty positive most small towns in the country do that.
Mm-hmm.
Or I would have somebody say, well, I thought that was a Nebraska thing. I thought that was a Oregon thing. So it's interesting when people do leave they leave where they've always known, and they realize how interconnected all these events are, all these people. They came from certain parts of the country, but it all was part of one same effort, one same cause. It kind of unifies the whole country once you realize that.
Yes, sure does. Yep.
Well, we're going to wind down here. Are there any final comments you need to say? Anything coming up in the near future for Patriot Park you want people to know about?
Well, we're at our last 2 months of the season. We will close for the winter on I believe November the 12th. I think that's a Sunday. We always stay open through Veterans Day, and that's of course the 11th of November. That's on a Saturday, and I think we'll either take the flags out either that Saturday afternoon or the Sunday afternoon. We have a board meeting on Thursday, and we'll make that final decision. But that's coming up, so keep an eye on our Facebook page and our website to if you want to participate in that. So we have a very nice time, pulling the flags. We sort of sort through them, save the good ones. We take the ones that aren't going to be used or can't be used again, and we have a big bonfire. We have the honor guard from Central City, American Legion, VFW comes in, and we do a proper disposal of the flags and play taps and have a little flag disposal ceremony, if you will. So that's always nice. We've had 20 or 30 people attend that, and it takes about 30 minutes to take them out, compared to about 3 days to put them in.
Yeah.
It's
Tearing down tends to be a lot
it's
simpler than putting
yeah,
up.
it can be. Yeah, taking flags out goes a lot faster than putting them in.
And I think it's also when the ground is hard as well, especially in November if you get that frost. But
Yeah,
muscle
yeah,
just pull them
yeah.
out. Well, I'd like to thank you for coming on today. Me and Randy have been playing a dance of trying to find dates. Both of our schedules have become quite wild as we move into fall mode in Western Pennsylvania. And fall mode in Western Pennsylvania is sometimes the toughest season in these parts. But I thank you for finding the time of your busy schedule to come join here. Tell us a bit about Patriot Park. I wish I could do more, but as I mentioned, I have a busy schedule, so this is the least I can do to spread the word on what you and the foundation are doing.
I appreciate it very much. The board appreciates your efforts to get the word out for us on our behalf. So I hope your listeners enjoy the discussion we've had this evening.
So before we finish up, folks, remember, down in the description below, there's the link to Patriot Park Foundation. So if you want to learn more about Patriot Park and if you want to contribute support to Patriot Park, go to that link below. If you want to also get a better visual, I do have that episode of Retracing History, which is presently called Commemorating Flight 93. It's gone through several titles as I try to work with the YouTube algorithm to get the video to a wider audience, and that there is a true science of trying to figure out how to get a video to spread across YouTube, especially if one with such heavy context. But be sure to go to that episode of Retracing History, Commemorating Flight 93, so you can learn more about Patriot Park. You can learn more about the Flight 93 National Memorial, learn more about the Flight 93 Chapel, and also about the Shanksville Fire Department's little memorial they have on display. But with that being said, I'd like to thank you all for tuning in. We're going to officially hit the music this time. I have two videos. I have a 10-second edit of my logo that I put in to start my videos. Then I got this nice 2-minute one with a nice song and everything. It's a lot prettier.